Hello, greetings. So it's time for another Gorean topic. And this one I have been asked to do. And the topic today is one that do require a bit of delicacy to talk about. And it is whether or not it's okay for a master to demand that his slave lose weight. Been asked to speak about this for obvious reasons that, well, I am fat. I'm fat, and within the Gorean community, I have been a slave, though I am now a free woman. And yeah, I guess this could be seen as both a Gorean and a BDSM topic. And there's not a lot of topics that covers both, but you can say it covers both of them, at least when it comes to total power exchange relationships within BDSM. And yeah, it could be referring to it could be useful to other types of BDSM relationships as well than the total power exchange ones. But since my focus is the Gorean lifestyle, it is the total power exchange slavery situation I will be focusing on. And I guess that a lot of people immediately, when they see a fat woman talking about losing weight and anything like that, they would assume that I am immediately against it. I am not. In my opinion, which not all people share, to me, the word slave means something. And I feel that when somebody says, I will give up my personal autonomy to this person, that is absolute. That means that the master has the right to demand anything of his slave. And the only thing that she can do if it comes to the point where she is no longer willing to obey is to beg release. Basically, it's the obey or beg release question. As long as the slave remains within the relationship willingly, as in she has not begged release, the master can demand whatever he wants of her. And that includes that she change her appearance, her hairstyle, that she don't have contact with some friends, or even that she leave her family behind. And it definitely means that he can demand that she changes her weight. So if the question is just, can a master make this demand of his slave, then yeah, absolutely he can. The question is then, how, if it's important for an owner that his slave lose weight, how can he do this in a way that maximizes her chance of succeeding in completing his order? And for that, there are some things to consider. First of all, you have to look at the underlying causes as to why are your slave fat. Because overweight isn't it is not one single problem. There's a lot of people that seems to think that overweight is just, oh, you eat too much and move too little. It isn't as simple as that. Saying it like that is like saying, well, I see a man by the edge at the bottom of a cliff here. He has obviously taken a dive and is dead. Clearly, falling off the cliff killed him. And you will be completely right. That he had a big fall and hit the ground did kill him. But it is then interesting to know, why did he go off the cliff? Did the cliff give way under his feet? Was it pushed? Did he make a tumble and fall? Did he try to kill himself? All of these different things is quite important to know as to why this man died. And it's the same thing with overweight. Yes, at its core, the reason why a person is fat is you consume more energy than you use. However, the reason for this vary a lot. So I will list some common reasons, and very often it's a combination of reasons that are the factors involved. One is, of course, there can be some sort of illness. That can be from simple thing that affects the metabolism of a person, to things that basically make sure that you can eat a lot less energy than others to gain weight. In fact, some people, it goes to the point that if you eat anything at all, if you eat enough to actually sustain yourself, you will also gain weight. So you have to check for medical reasons. So I would recommend that before you demand that your slave lose weight, you send her to the doctor to figure out, first of all, what sort of things that you can do to lose weight that will be healthy for her. Because if there are a lot of illnesses, for example, where you can not say you will spend an hour at the gym a day, because that will be very dangerous for her. You need to have a complete health checkup before starting drastically changing your body. And the more weight you want her to take off, the more important it is to have a health checkup. Never you should check up if there's medical reasons as to why she is overweight. I, for example, have problems with my hormones and a lot of the body chemistry, meaning that I actually eat far less than a lot of my friends who are thin, and I still get fat because I burn off very little energy. So that's one reason. Another reason, of course, is, do your slave eat the right things? Often it's not so much the amount, and your slave might be actually eating quite little, but she eats the wrong things. For example, you can have a lot of salad for one chocolate bar. So is there enough knowledge there? Is she eating the right things? And having her checked out for allergies and food intolerances is also quite useful, because sometimes if you retain both water and gain fat if you eat a lot of things that you are either allergic to or have a food intolerance to. So finding out that is helpful, and also educating yourself and your slave about what foods are good to eat. And also important to remember that not all foods that are healthy are slimming. For example, avocado is extremely healthy. There's lots of great vitamins in it. It's an awesome power food. It's also very fattening. So basically, if possible, working with a dietitian of some sort to help set up a diet for your slave that gives her the right nutrients and creates a good, healthy food, a good, healthy way to eat is very useful. A third thing that is important is, do your slave has mental health issues? I have that I think is my biggest problem when it comes to my weight. I have mental health problems, I have depression, and it becomes a downward spiral, in that a lot of people think that depression is just that you are sad. It isn't really. Sadness is one of the symptoms of depression. It isn't depression in itself. Generally, what depression is a lack of energy to do things. And when it's really hard just to get out of bed, it is almost impossible to go to the gym, make healthy food from scratch, and so on and so forth. So that means that I end up eating pre-made, unhealthy food, and I get more depressed from that, and it becomes a downward spiral. So if your slave has mental health issues, often it can be important to treat those issues before you tackle the weight problem for an increased chance of success. And it might also be a good idea to look at things like her family history and so on, because very often there is inheritance in this. And it's also a thing that you can get addicted to food. And like some people say that it's, if you're an alcoholic, you can stop drinking. You do not need to ever drink alcohol again. You don't need to have that temptation in front of you. But if you're addicted to food, you have to eat. The temptation will always be there. It's like being a heroin addict, and you always have to take a little bit of heroin and have to try to do that without falling off the wagon. That's not easy. So you have to look at things like, are your slave addicted to food? Does this, for example, come from a family background? In my family, we everything involved food. So celebration, food. Comfort, food. Family time, food. Everything is food. And that creates an addiction. And dealing with that, before you deal with the counting of the calories and the kilos, can be very useful. And of course, there's a lot of other reasons for overweight as well. For example, often the fattening stuff is cheap, while the good healthy food is expensive. So it's a socioeconomic issue as well. But you have to look at all of these reasons. Figure out the underlying reasons. Why are your slave fat? Because the reason, unlike a lot of propaganda, is usually not, oh, this person is just lazy and gluttonous. That usually is not the reason. Usually it's some sort of unhealthy connection with food. But that unhealthy connection with food have a tendency to have underlying causes. And if you do not treat those underlying causes, having your slave lose weight is like seeing a wall that's cracked and then just painting over it. It'll look good for 2 weeks, and then the cracks will just make the new paint crack as well. But if you repair the wall and then paint, you'll have a nice wall for quite some time. So yeah, doing it the right way and talking with a physician, talking with mental health professionals, and basically figure out why is your slave overweight helps you increase her chance of success. So that's post number 1. The second is, what are your expectations here? If, for example, you have a slave that's my size, and you expect her to, within a year, be model 10, that's not going to happen. Then you scream at the screen, but it can happen! Yes, it is technically possible, but not very likely. Also remember that when you are as big as me, for example, losing a lot of weight tend to cause a lot of excess skin. So, what are your goal in making your slave lose weight? Are your goal to make her more healthy? Then awesome. Losing weight is always a good idea. If she's overweight, that is. But is your goal to make her a hot mama? Then you might also have to spend the money for operations to have that excess skin removed once she has reached her goal weight. So that is something to keep in mind. And then, of course, it is that And I know this is going to be so discouraging for a lot of people, but when somebody has actually come to the point of obesity, or generally actually just overweight, lasting weight reduction has only 3% chance of success. Of 100 people that try to lose weight, only 3 people experience lasting weight reduction. That's important to remember. Because there's so many pitfalls, and it's so easy to regain weight. And there's also a lot of doctors, for example, that are studying a phenomenon that seems like the body remembers the weight it used to be in some way, and then sort of have a tendency to just fill up that again unless you are extremely strict with your diet. Now, here is an important matter. I do believe that if you are in some sort of power exchange relationship and somebody is lording over you and can control your food intake, control when you exercise, it is a lot easier to lose weight because you get that control. It's just the same as if your dog gets fat, you just don't feed it as much, you walk it more, it doesn't have a say in the matter, it will lose weight. So I do believe that a slave has a greater chance, but still, lasting weight reduction is difficult. And there is also a lot of research that indicate that yo-yo dieting is a lot more dangerous than just being fat. That basically the health risks with being fat are far less for a person who is just fat than a person that constantly diets, lose quite a bit of weight, then regain it, then lose a bit of weight, then regain it. So if you are going to make your slave lose weight, be pretty damn sure that you can keep that weight off her, or you will doing her a disservice. Now, I'm not saying let her be unhealthy, but generally speaking, if we're only talking about the health aspect here, it is actually better to not focus on the weight, but focus on health. Meaning, get her exercising, get her eating more healthy. If that also leads to weight reduction, then awesome, see that as a bonus. But by focusing on her getting more healthy, more fit, rather than focusing on her health, it is more likely that you will reach a weight goal for her, or at least that she'll lose some weight. And also, when we're talking about expectations, it is far more likely that, for example, I weigh about 130 kilos. I'm not completely sure what that is in pounds. 260, I think. Around 260 pounds, I think. We don't use pounds here in Norway, so yeah. Anyway, it's far more far more realistic for me, for example, to have a goal of reaching 100 kilos. That's 200 pounds, approximately. Than it is for me to say, okay, I'll become 60 kilos, or basically 120 pounds, and be a size small, and so on and so forth. That is not likely to happen. I will fail, I'll get discouraged, and the weight will just regain itself. If I, for example, then instead set my goal a bit more realistically, I am far more likely to reach that goal. And the same with most people who are losing weight. So you're much more realistic if you're talking about an obese slave. It's far more realistic to have her lose some of it, get more healthy, get more fit, and look better. than it is for her to become thin. So while it's not my place to dictate what goals you will set for your slave, these are things that you might want to consider when giving the order. Another thing to consider is at what point do you consider your slave fat? I mean, there's some people have a very distorted idea about what fat is. I mean, I'm fat. There's no question about it. I'm fat. I'm obese. But the people that, for example, would call Marilyn Monroe fat, she isn't. Because of the model industry and all of that fashion hysteria, there's a lot of people that seem to think that it's the weight of those models that basically they are generally dangerously underweight. In addition, they have been photoshopped to look even thinner. That's the normal weight. It isn't. Someone like, for example, Marilyn Monroe is the normal human weight. So if your slave look like that, you have a normal weight slave. You do not have a fat slave. Of course, if you want a walking skeleton, then by all means do order her to lose weight. It's your slave, it's your choice. But you might want to consider why and also educate yourself on what actually a normal healthy weight is. And of course also it is important to educate yourself on like I said, all the details around it, how these things work, so you can help your slave reach her goal. Because there's a lot of stupid comments out there too. Like, I had this discussion with a Gorean, and he said, no, he was talking about somebody who had about the same body size like Marilyn Monroe. Oh no, when she became a slave, he would make her diet. Eventually, I said, yeah, but, and we discussed weight generally. So what if your slave just can't get thinner because they're different body types? This woman has a normal body size. It is quite possible that if she is going to be as thin as you want her to be, she will starve. She will not get the nutrients she need. Her body will deteriorate. And I thought, yeah, that's completely okay as long as she's thin. Now, again, like I said, I have a pretty extreme view in that I feel that as long as a woman, or a man for that matter, though they are rarer in the Gorean lifestyle, agree to be a slave, and by agreeing to be a slave, I mean has not begged release, it is the master's choice what she will do with herself. So if he says, no, you will not eat, your body will deteriorate, and you will try to look like a walking skeleton, that's his choice, but it sure as hell would make me beg release in 5 femtoseconds, if not sooner. So, yeah. So, for ending comment on this, I would say that a lot of people say that no owner can never ask his slave to lose weight because he might hurt her, it's fat shaming, and so on and so forth. And, well, definitely, demanding that somebody lose weight can be very hurtful. And a kind master will keep that in mind, that his slave might have complexes around her weight. But I do not think it is wrong for an owner to address his slave's looks or her health. And I also think that it can be a very motivating thing. I think that can actually help that slave better her health for her master if he's smart about it and go about getting her to lose weight in a good way. Because we both have the situation where somebody else then controls your food intake and how you exercise, but you also have that when you are doing something for somebody else, it's generally then often easier to succeed. So I don't feel that is wrong at all. I feel that a master has the right to do whatever he wants with his slave, but also I think that a good master will be concerned about the health of his slave. And being obese is a health issue. He should be concerned about it. But if he wants to succeed and get a thinner slave out of it, educating himself and doing it the right way has a much better chance of getting a positive result. And that are my 2 cents, or it seems quite a lot of sense by how long this video is about that topic. I hope you have enjoyed this video. Have a great day, and blessed be.